Okay, I'm gonna share this string first. Assalamu alaikum. Actually, I wanted to go live today. I'm rocking my new my new burqa. Um, my lovely sister-in-law sent this to me from Pakistan. Actually, the niqab itself is a little different, and it ties in the back and everything. Um, and this is how actually my the new outer coat looks and everything. And yalla was borrowing to fall my tail here. Anyway, before we get started, I'm gonna pray. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Actually, this is just like the last video I had made. I and this is just like I had just gotten off of the I had just gotten off, and then next thing there was this insurrection that I thought I would never see ever in my life at the Capitol building on behest of this, fraudulent character who lied his way to the top named Donald Trump. Um, as it's just like for those who don't know, I'm one of his harshest critics. I knew he was dangerous from day one. I never did vote for him and everything. And I never did acknowledge him as my president because he is so dangerous. And, and I know he's so treasonous too. And then, on top of that, um, social media outlets and everything else like that had, banned him everywhere. And yet, I would sit there, I would see what he did on, the news and everything. Um, and it's just like, and as usual, he's playing it up as usual. He's gaslighting all and sundry. And it's just like I have more than enough of my gut full of this idiot. Um, it's just like the, for my yeah, my parents and everything else like that. My whole entire family is immigrant. And it's just like during this time of the siege on the Capitol and everything else like that, my Congresswoman Jen Schakowsky was in Washington that day. I think a lot of that is is just like, and she really works hard for us. That she's an amazing woman. She stands up for immigrants' rights and everything else like that. I was born myself. I was born and raised here in the United States. My parents are from my side alone is German. You can pretty much say I'm like first generation. Um, I mean, I even tried to show my my daughters. I got two daughters, and I tried to show them German, but to my chagrin, they don't show no interest. Um, I mean, they can easily pick it up if they want to, but it's just like I mean, it's just like even my husband who would tell me if they would, which means I love you, but that's about it. I said, that's all you're gonna have to say is that. I said, come on, man. I mean, because this is just like I picked up, because I grew up being bilingual, speaking, um, German and English, and my I picked up the four Pakistani languages from my husband, and my husband is also very multilingual because he used to work on a ship and everything else like that. And actually, his ship picture is right behind me on my refrigerator. He was a handsome devil then. He still is now. But I mean, but I mean, um, but this is just like when he got his citizenship and everything else like that. He was following me. I like, okay, I follow Benazir and see what she's doing. I mean, because it's just like I have to say when I mean, it's just like, and he pretty much knew how to vote from, you know, especially my youngest daughter is extremely politically savvy. Um, I mean, and it's just like she pretty much knows about the how to hmm, my stupid the brain fog is kicking in. I got hypothyroidism, but that's it's just like it's and that and the hair shedding and all this other stuff. But other than that, it's just like I know I should probably go in and get my lab works done and everything, see how my thyroid function is and everything. Um, but so far, it's just like this medication, that I'm taking for it is like therapeutic and everything. Like I have two pre-existing conditions. I have hypothyroidism, and I also have the acute bronchial asthma. And occasionally, I need my inhalers and stuff like that. Um, and I mean, the it is just extremely horrible, because I need like four different types of medications to keep my my keep my asthma under control and everything. Plus, at times I use a nebulizer. Um, and it's just like one thing. Trump, as you know, he sat there, he padded the courts with his appointees and everything else like that, thinking about it's just like, and it's just like these stupid people would not, these people and everything else like that, these judges and everything else like that, if they want to sit there and they want to get sacked from their lawfully positions and everything else like that, they know they can't go against the Constitution, and that's what hasn't bargained for. And it's just like one thing. I mean, because it's just like because he's not, he wants to sit there, he wants to take everybody down with him. I it's just like, and like I pray to Allah that they sit there and they change those nuclear codes ASAP, because I knew from the get go before he even got in there how dangerous he really is. The reason why I named this video German American, but Dabang. Okay, Dabang actually means someone who it's a Urdu word meaning uh well, you can say it's Urdu, Pashto, and Henko. It's like is it means someone who is evil, Bala. Bala is Henko for like evil. But I mean, because one thing, I remember a long time ago. Uh, someone in my family sent me this late this video, the bone lady, and she's a Pasholi lady, and she was wearing a sharka burqa. Actually, this burqa actually, because I have been begging my family for this from my first trip in Pakistan, that I really wanted it from the get go. And it's just like, and it starts from the head and it goes all the way to the feet and everything else like that. And the outside, is like mesh for to see out of and everything else like that, but nobody can see inside who is there. So um and this is just like, and and she said something about about Zadati. It's something very very bad about Zadati. Um, and actually, I really don't blame her at all one bit, because how she feels about Zadati, I feel the same way exactly about Trump. And but it's just like she's an old lady and everything else like that, and and I pretty much admire her of her spunk and her intestinal fortitude to speak up for what is right. And this is just like, and she doesn't want to see her country fall apart, and I feel the same way. How I'm feeling right now. It's just like because like because actually my family is pretty much like Johnny come latelys when it comes to when especially here in the United States. um it's just like my you know it's just like it's just like the elders on my father's side pretty much, because I actually I didn't speak to majority of them, no way. um like like a lot of my actually my grandfather settled here into Chicago, but his brothers and his sister settled up in Milwaukee up there, and everybody came as a family at that time. They were from Bavaria. My mother was from, actually this was before the Schwaben. Uh, Meine Mutter kommt aus der Schwaben, äh, zu wohnen hier in Chicago, ähm, in 1958. Äh, I said my mother, translate, my mother came here in, to, here to United States to live in Chicago in 1958. Actually, she came with her sister, my tanti Lydia. Tanti means auntie, and actually, um, Tanti Lydia's mom is Dinah Uden. I mean, I said, Auntie Lydia's husband is Jewish, um, and so actually, my mother pretty much, didn't even want to be bothered with anybody in her family because of the stress and everything. And I don't blame her. I don't like to be told what to do either. Neither did she. And it's just like, and she wanted to be with someone who was going to at least, respect her. Um, and I mean, it's just like, because one thing, my mother had a very bad childhood because of what happened in Germany when she grew up and everything else like that. She's seen the Holocaust. She's, also, I mean, I'm like, honestly, I'm not doing this just for show. I'm not doing this because my heart is broken. I mean, this is just like, one thing on my blog, my recent blog, it's just like it was my Egg Foo Young blog. I mean, it's just like, one thing. I mean, because, one thing, I very much love food and I love other people's cultures and everything else like that. And, and, I mean, but it's like a healthy obsession with food. I can eat and then say Alhamdulillah and then push myself back from the table. Um, um, I mean, when it comes to like, you know, the what had happened and everything with, it's just like, one thing. My great uncle, he one of my great uncles, he was my he was my grandfather's brother. I think he was like one of the younger brothers, and he put on the American GI uniform and went to go fight against Hitler. I mean, it's just like, I mean, what Trump is doing to my country, it hurts me very much. And this is just like, especially, this is just, I do not condone what he has done at all whatsoever. He is a dictator wannabe. He is just like, it's just like, especially, he's slapped me in my face very hard because, especially my father fought Kim Jong Un's grandfather in the Korean War. So just, I can't believe Trump sit there and was just selling our country to the highest bidder. And like, one thing, when President Roosevelt, I'm talking FDR, I'm not talking about Teddy. Um, I mean, talking during World War II and everything. I mean, there's a lot of immigrant groups, especially, it's just like in my family. I mean, we sacrificed ourselves, and my father was like 17 years old when he went to the army, and he fought. He was like in the worst part of Pork Chop Hill, which is the worst part of the Korean War. And I remember when I was changing his dressing and everything else like that, I seen this big old huge crater in his leg like this, and my father is diabetic, and he's and he had sores on his legs from he had leg ulcers from him being diabetic and everything. Um, I mean, it's just like it's just like it's extremely extremely horrible, but this is just like what this monster is doing. Because I think about what what this is just like my family and everything. I mean, I have to say, like, one thing, I didn't think I would, like, this is just like, one thing, I'm not a trader or anything else like that, but I didn't think I would like America this much, but I really do, honestly. I mean, when I comes to think about the sacrifices my family has made to stay here, I mean, especially like, during, like, World War One and everything else like that. I mean, lots of people were sent back because of War Powers Act and everything, and plus, I mean, like one thing, and speaking again about Roosevelt before I drifted off, but I mean, but hear me out and everything else, please. This is just like, I mean, he said there he had a lot of people rounded up and put in internment camps here in the United States who were Japanese because he thought they were loyal to Hirohito, and I mean, I have to say, one thing is just like, like, and this is just like, one thing I'm about. I mean, this is just like, it's just like, and on top of that, we Germans got abused verbally and everything else like that. They, they thought we were loyal to Hitler and all this other stuff, and saying Nazis, Nazis, Nazis. And honestly, I hate that word with a passion. Some one day, someone called me that, and I just totally went berserk. I mean, that is the worst thing ever you can say to any German. I mean, because it's just like I mean, like where my mother told me, you know, I mean, and I seen like one video last night about this one lady. She was in Hamburg, and she said the exact same thing my mother said. And this lady, she was like of African origin and everything else like that. And she's like about like 3 years older than my mother. And and on top of that, she came like 10 years before my mother did here to United States. And I mean, because this is just like like one thing. And and I watched another one about a lot of like in the 1930s and everything. A lot of African Americans, they went elsewhere because they were treated so badly here at home. And African Americans, from the time that they were brought over here in chains on the slave ships and everything else like that, at every battle here in the United States, they were there, including you know in, including in the American Revolution. And the one man who actually died for our country, was African American to me, is a hero. His name is Crispus Attucks. And it's just like, and this was talked about in my school. And I have been watching also about the I mean, I like it didn't dawn on me. I had to ask one of my, one of the people, who was a teacher, or actually really assistant principal, when I was, from high school, and um, I, inboxed him. I said I was watching something about, that, like, oh my God, we almost got into a war with France, and then I mentioned about the XYZ affair and everything else like that, and I'm like, did we talk about that in school? I mean, I mean, but it's just like he said it was covered. So, but it's just like honestly, but I also, I did my studies and everything, especially. I mean, what is really horrible was about the Dred Scott case and everything else like that. I mean, because a lot of African Americans have been fighting for their civil rights for God knows when, and the hatred runs deep here, and it's just like, and then Trump has been fanning the waves, been fanning the flames of hatred here, and it's really really disgusting. And it's just like I'm like I'm like gee whiz, man, we're trying to move on from that. Let sleeping dogs lie. I mean, it's just like one thing. I have to say one thing. Alhamdulillah, I've never been prejudiced a day in my life. Uh, and I, feel so deeply ashamed about. I feel like I want to hang my head in shame and everything else like that. Because they say, oh, where are you from? You're from the United States and everything, and I'm like, and this is just like, and I'm gonna say, look, I cannot help where I was born, and it's actually I would I this is just like I just don't want someone to sit there and pass judgment on me for how how I for where was born and everything. This is just like one thing. I said, it's like people who are judging the book when they look at me from elsewhere. They're judging the book by the cover. And this is just like one thing, especially some other immigrant groups. They just come here and all this other stuff, and they would sit there and they would look down on me and everything else like that. I said, look, I mean, it's just like one thing. I cannot help where I was born at and everything else like that. And I'm almost like saying, hey, if you don't like it here, get out of here, just leave. I mean, it's just like one thing because I mean, I was about to I bit back a curse honestly, but I was really really it's just like, but it's just like, but a lot of people would say that and especially like some people they would like marry Americans and everything else like that back in the day just for a green card. And it's just like in my religion, this is haram, means it's forbidden. And like one thing, the it's a very very bad thing that this storming of the Capitol has happened. Um, I'm extremely extremely upset about the whole entire thing. It's a horrible affair that we had to sit there, we had to go through. And I mean, this is just like one thing. I'm glad, Alhamdulillah, Speaker Pelosi is okay. But like one thing, Trump should not stay in office. That he sit there, he sit there, he lied and cheated his way to the Oval Office and everything else like that. He shouldn't even stay even 1 second for him doing what he did. Honestly, Trump, du willst so viele schamlos. Schwein, Hund. Actually, I said, Trump is is shameless and he's a dirty dog. I mean, it's just like it's that there needs to be an amendment to the Constitution to stop this from ever happening again. I mean, especially like someone who is hell bent on treason should be automatically disqualified from seeking office of the President of the United States of America. And he has been committing a plethora of crimes. Why he falsely was in in that chair. And and he committed many acts of high treason. And Moscow Mitch, you and Lindsey Graham, you ought to be ashamed of yourself because you sit there, you enable that stupid guy. And and Holly, you need to step down. And the rest of you who sit there who are still backing Trump and all this other stuff, y'all have blood on your hands. Honestly, swear before Allah, you have blood on your hands of many people here in the United States, including these poor kids you sit there, you put in cages, and including you, Jeff Sessions. All of you should sit there and who had done this and everything else like that should stand trial for crimes against humanity. Like, I wasn't born yet when they did the Nuremberg trials, but one thing I had heard and I had read a lot about it, and this is just like one thing, the ones that did these horrible acts by killing a lot of these people and everything else like that. It's just like one thing. This is just extremely horrible for what they had done, and they sit there, they listen to a pathological liar who was not even German and didn't even have the German people's interests at heart. He had his own agenda and everything else like that. It's just like Hitler was an Austrian. And it's just like I'm very well familiar. I mean, it's just like you couldn't go against him, otherwise you end up going into the concentration camp. And it's just like, and on top of that, he even sit there, he even killed people who with special needs. And he would not even sit there, and he wouldn't even stop there. He would wipe out whole entire families, and perform horrible medical experiments on these people. I mean, but it's just like I have to say, one thing, a long time ago, there was these horrible and unnecessary medical experiments that was done on people who are African American, and it's just totally appalling. I mean, this is just like I'm a registered voter and I'm a taxpayer, and it's just like one thing. I it's just like my vote was my voice. I voted for what I voted for was right. I voted for President Biden and Vice President Harris. I cannot wait soon enough for their inaugurated. I mean, it's just like one thing. When I was in Pakistan 4 years ago, I sit there and I did not want to watch Trump being inaugurated, and I didn't. because I know he's a traitor. I know he's dangerous to to Trump. You and your stupid cronies, okay? I can't say read my lips because you can't see what I'm my face, okay? But you can read the expression of my eyes, okay? The eyes are the windows to my soul, okay? And it's saying you ought to be ashamed of yourselves. Dear President Biden, please do me a favor. As soon as you take office, inshallah, please close these stupid camps and reunite these children with their families. And I hope, inshallah, legislation is drawn up, inshallah, that this will never, ever, ever happen here again. Just a second, I want to get my phone because I want to Google something. Okay. Well, anyway, as you can see, I'm in my kitchen and I'm getting ready to use my grill because I'm getting ready to smoke some fish. But I'm going to, do a cooking demonstration later. But for those who want to see my cooking demonstration, it's going to be done live in my group called Benazir's Blog, a cooking guide, and that's in Facebook. Uh, and this, because I will, be doing some live videos, a live video in there, making a couple of dishes. One is like Indian, and the other one is some smoked fish. But um, wait a minute. Anyway, I can do it here. I can do it there, and forward the video into Facebook and to my group then, inshallah. But actually, because I don't want um to get off topic here. Um, I mean, because this is my thoughts and feelings. Um, um, okay, never mind. Uh, mm, So anyway, I just wanted to post and everything else. I mean, cause like one thing, my heart is really in pain. I mean, one thing about when you think about United States, right? You would because we are the greatest melting pot on earth, okay? And one thing about us Germans, actually, we don't settle in every place for long because we do travel, and and I mean, eh, holy moly, okay, okay. Actually, Statue of Liberty. Mm, uh, Inscription. Okay, there's the. Okay, here's like the bronze plaque. Uh, Here it is. It says the new Colossus. Okay, not like the brazen giant of Greek fame with concurring oh concurring limbs a, a, astride from land to land. Here at our sea-washed sunset gate shield stand, a mighty woman with a torch whose fame is in the imprisoned. Hmm, okay, uh, whose whose flame is imprisoned lightning, and her name is her 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 name, mother of exiles, from her from her beckoning hand. Okay. Oh, okay. It says, with your lips, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore, send these to the homeless tempest tossed to me. I lift up my lamp beside the golden door. This tablet with okay. Now I mean, because like one thing, I've seen the Statue of Liberty when last time, well, actually, when I had went to Brooklyn, and my mother-in-law was here then. My mother-in-law even took a picture of this amazing statue, and she had went back to Pakistan. After she went back to Pakistan, she got really sick, and she was like too sick to travel and everything. And then actually, sadly, she had passed away, because of kidney problems. I mean, it's just like, even though, it's just like my husband is Pakistani and everything else like that, that he also does believe in the promise of America. And I pray, inshallah, that this never, never, never happens again. Especially, my memory is taking me back to like 9/11, when Bush Jr. was in office, when, when the, planes slammed into the World Trade Center. This day I remember well. My TV clicked on this, the very first thing I seen in the morning. Before that, I was selling Mary Kay cosmetics before this happened, and I had not too long came back uh, from doing a seminar in Dallas, Texas, and I met one lady who was also a Muslim, who was a teacher, and she told me her students were frightened about going back to school because of what had happened. Um, and it's just like, this was really horrible. And then, it took a while for the Bush Bush President Bush Jr. to show up. I don't know, who the hell is he? I mean, because one thing is just like, well, actually, I voted against him for Gore because I knew he was kind of. I mean, it's just like, I felt he was kind of dangerous too. But I mean, but he finally showed up and everything. I remember I got so sick I was vomiting all over the place and everything. I mean, no, I really, but I was so sick. I was heaving and everything. and it triggered my asthma very badly, and I had to go to the emergency room to get a breathing treatment. Um, that was an extremely stressful time for me, and especially like one thing, my father had told me, "Oh, don't wear my hijab and everything else like that." I said, "You know something?" I said, let me tell you something. I told my father, I said, look, I will continue to wear my hijab. You're nobody to tell me what to do. And I said, I'll live the rest of my life as a Muslim, inshallah, and I will die as a Muslim. And, it's just like, one thing. And he's like, very well. I mean, it's just like I said, I say, hey, look, it's just like I felt like my religion was hijacked too because of someone committing a very callous act. And I had to sit there and I had to get this off my chest too because I had it on my chest. I had it on my mind for so long. And it's just like like when everybody takes the oath of office and everything, starting from a local level, who are sworn to protect the Constitution of the United States, even foreign and domestic. And Trump is like a domestic terrorist. He's the puppet master, just pulling the strings of his MAGA followers. And, it's just like this has very much had, this it has horrible, horrible, horrible consequences. I mean, they should have disqualified him from the get go from running. I mean, such as like, one thing, especially like, because I know, he learned all this from that psychopath he has for a father, and actually Mary Trump. I can't wait to get her book. And actually, I don't blame her at all whatsoever. This lady, she's right on the money about her uncle, and and this is just like and it's just like even his sister, Trump's sister, who is a federal judge, even stepped down because of it comes in question about the taxes regarding Fred Trump's money, their father. And at least one thing, she did the honorable thing. She stepped down from her position as a federal judge. I mean, but then again, it's just like I mean, it's just like one thing, and hopefully, this Harami in chief would sit there and do something, to but he doesn't even have an honorable bone in his body. Actually, Harami means bastard in Urdu. So, but there's not a vile word I can say. You know, every vile word I have that I think about it is even too good for him. Um, so anyway, I'm, I apologize if this video was kind of negative, but I want to express how I'm feeling. This is just like one thing. And actually, I pray inshallah that President Biden and Vice President Harris I mean, because I know, the road is going to be hard and everything for them, especially, we're in a pandemic and everything else like that, because, again, thanks to Trump, he is, he did this deliberately because he doesn't care. Like, this is just like in, like anything that happens and everything else like that, guess what? He's out there playing golf. I'm like, damn, isn't that just lovely? And my taxpayer dollars is paying his stupid salary. And I hope, that we don't have to sit there, and I hope, they for his treasonous behavior, it's just like, one thing, the Secret Service should sit there and throw him to the wolves. I mean, like, one thing. And, it's just like, again, our hard earned tax dollars pays the Secret Service and everything else like that to protect this stupid creep. So, anyway, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.